Happy Friday, everyone, and welcome to the Good Old Gamer. So we've had a pretty big week here, lots of information coming out. Turns out NVIDIA is actually going to make the RTX 3090 Ti a thing. AMD's Ryzen 5800X 3D, we now have leaked pricing information and availability dates, so that's pretty interesting. And we also have information about the upcoming FSR 2.0. All of that and more, so let's go ahead and just jump right in. So kicking things off, the Radeon RX 6000 and RTX 30 series GPU prices reach record low since January 2021. So we've been looking at these charts for a while now, and as you can see here, the price points are now so low, they're actually at or below where they were well over a year ago. So this is actually a very good sign. These prices have also been reflected at retail. They go ahead and show off a bunch of different GPUs and pricings, but we've been taking a look at things here as well. We now have RX 6600s coming in at about $430. We have 6600 XTs showing up at retail at about $500. And we've also seen things like the 3060 Ti's coming in at just over $600. So now, in my opinion, now's not the perfect time to buy. Prices have come down rather substantially from where they were. GPUs that were $600, $700, $800 are now $400 or $500, so on and so forth. We even see in Europe, Paul's shown me plenty of GPUs, 6900 XTs coming in right around 1200 euro, which, accounting for the inflation that we saw last year, is about MSRP. So graphics cards are definitely getting close. I would say they will get near, especially the AMD graphics cards. They should actually hit their stated MSRPs, or at least come very, very close to them. So until we get there, I would say probably hold off for another month or two. But on the flip side, with energy prices starting to go up, I don't think prices are going to be as low as we were all hoping for. The only thing that would really bring the prices at or below their stated MSRPs would be if GPU miners just simply flood the market, the secondhand market, with graphics cards. Now, taking a look at the price of Ethereum today, we're sitting at $26.29. So this is about where things have been. If we take a look at the 1 month chart, it's relatively flat, slow decline, about 10% down, not a huge dip. So what this says to me is crypto is not crashing quite as sharply as we had all hoped. I was hoping to see Ethereum under 1,500, and that would lead to the massive sell-off of graphics cards. Instead, it's kind of hovering around that not-so-profitability mark unless people have already paid off their graphics cards or have access to very cheap energy. So we're not seeing that huge flood on the secondhand market. Therefore, we're not going to see those super low prices at retail. So it's just a slow decline, but things are getting better. So for everybody out there who wants the doom and gloom that, oh, prices are going to be awful forever and blah, 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 that's not going to be the case. Things will normalize eventually. Obviously, GPU mining just isn't going to go away. If the Ethereum prices stay where they are and proof of stake is still the magical unicorn, things will continue basically as they are here now. But graphics cards, discrete graphics cards, just haven't found the bottom yet, as GPU mining just isn't as profitable and people aren't buying them for that. So now it's simply just the gaming market buying these up when they hit new low price points. And once those buyers get satisfied and have their cards and they're happy, prices have to go back down. So that's why we're seeing it come down in increments. It's a great sign, and hopefully this continues. However, like I said, I would keep an eye on energy prices. If those skyrocket here in the not too distant future, I would probably pull the trigger if I were you. If you're sitting on the fence waiting for prices to go down, but let's say oil goes up another $50 a barrel, I would just pull the trigger at that point, because that will start affecting the cost due to shipping, the packaging, the plastics and materials used, and basically everything in between is going to go up rather substantially. So we're still on the downtrend. You want to kind of hit that bottom. When that's going to be, who knows? If the energy crisis doesn't happen and things kind of remain stable-ish, which who knows if that'll happen, then prices will continue to go down. So just keep an eye on other factors that may affect graphics cards, but things are looking good as of right now. Then confirmed, the GeForce RTX 3090 Ti launches on March 29th. Reviews coming on the same day. So this is kind of interesting. We kind of all thought that NVIDIA was going to scrap this, as GPU mining just isn't as profitable. Like we were just talking about, that was the main purpose of this card, was to sell to miners at ridiculous prices and make, you know, the super elite gamers jealous and make them buy a few. But for the most part, this card really isn't for anybody. So it's going to be coming out a little bit later on this month. It's going to have a little bit faster RAM, 2 more SMs, blah, 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 blah. Obviously, they don't want you to know that it's really no faster than a 3090, hence why the reviews are going to come out on the same day. This is not a part I think too many people are interested in, so I'm not going to spend a whole lot of time on it. But if you are interested in it, well, it's going to be a thing. Personally, I would just wait for the RTX 40 series later on this year, but that's just me. And speaking of more GPUs that don't make a whole lot of sense, the Radeon RX 6950 XT, 6750 XT, and 6650 XT RDNA2 Refresh with 18 gigabit memory, now expected to launch April 20th or 21st. So this is basically the same thing. AMD is going to refresh their RDNA2 lineup, give it slightly faster RAM, and probably reset MSRPs. More than likely, that's the whole point of these GPUs. As well, the 6600 series launched with reasonable MSRPs, but even the 6700 and 6900, 6800s, those guys launched in a world that simply doesn't exist anymore. Inflation hit massively after these cards launched, and they kind of need to be readjusted. So instead of raising MSRPs on current existing stuff, they're just going to launch these guys. Now, once again, this doesn't make a whole lot of sense for anybody looking to buy a high-end graphics card, as later this year you'll have RDNA 3 and, once again, the RTX 40 series. So I don't really know who this is for either. Personally, I would say if you can get an RX 6900 XT at a lower price than the 6950, go that route. Basically, just get whatever's cheaper. If we're lucky, maybe this will help push prices down on the old stock, and that would be the best case scenario, in my opinion. Now on to some of the interesting stuff. AMD to discuss next generation image upscaling at GDC 2022. Ooh, image upscaling. This is a topic that's very divisive out there. I personally like it, as we want to get the most performance and best image quality out of the lowest cost products, and using things like FSR, DLSS, XESS, that is going to be the way of the future of doing that. So, all right, during one of the sessions titled Next Generation Image Upscaling for Gamers, we'll present AMD's latest research results in image upscaling technology and explain how this improves the gaming experience. Should be noted, though, that nowhere does AMD mention FSR or machine learning. So, therefore, those expecting demos or even teasers of FSR 2.0, Fidelity FX Super Resolution, should probably lower their expectations. While AMD did mention that FSR will evolve, we should expect a new version. We were half a year away from RDNA 3's launch. The architecture should have dedicated GPU units, more sophisticated image, blah, 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 blah. Okay, so that's just them going into it. Well, honestly, this is obviously going to be some form of FSR update. So they're going to talk about it here at GDC. Whether they implement it or show it off, that's a whole different thing. But obviously, this is the direction that they're going. And personally, I'm really interested. As I mentioned, this is the technology that's going to make budget or mainstream level GPUs more viable heading into the future. Now, if you're buying top tier, you know, $1,000, $2,000, $3,000 graphics cards, this doesn't really matter to you. But if you're looking at, you know, the $200, $300, $400, $500 graphics cards, this is a big deal. So I'm very interested to see what AMD's got. Now, speaking of AMD, the AMD Ryzen 7 5800X 3D to cost $449 and launch on April 20th. So that's about a month and a half away, just about. So this is, once again, another product that I'm not really sure how many people are super interested in this. While it's supposedly going to bring 20% IPC gains, it has 10% lower clock speed. So overall, maybe 5 to 10% faster than what we currently have, which would make it more competitive with Alder Lake, which is only maybe 2 to 5% higher on gaming performance overall. So it will put them back in the game, but just like the RTX 3090 Ti, I'm pretty sure this is just AMD going, well, we said we were going to bring this out, so they are. I personally think that this is going to be a very limited run item, and part of that has to do because of this one. AMD Ryzen 7 5800X 3D reportedly does not support overclocking yet. Now, personally, a lot of people were taking this going, oh, you can't overclock these. I guarantee you can, but what's more than likely is the samples that they've been sending out thus far just don't have the ability because AMD doesn't want Intel knowing how fast that these can go. Regardless of that, it will probably have more limitations than a standard CPU that we're used to because of the 96 megabytes of 3D V cache. This means that heat dissipation is a bigger issue, and it will be more constrained than something that can dump the heat right back into the case as fast as possible. So this is going to be a very interesting chip. This is obviously a beta test to see how these 3D stacked parts work, in my opinion. What's even more interesting to me, and probably you as well, is AMD's also preparing a Ryzen 5700/5100 and 4700, 10 new AM4 CPUs planned in April. So it looks like AMD's going to be throwing every overstock product that they have just laying around at the problem of trying to compete with Intel at its mainstream platform. As we talked about in the previous video, it looked like that they were going to come out with some very competitive products. Turns out that's probably not the case. What they're going to do is just flood the market with a lot of really old stuff. So here we go. We have obviously the 5800X 3D like we were talking about, and then they're expecting the 5700X, a 5600 non-X, a 5500, 4600G, 4500, and a 4100 on the 4th of April. So that's coming up rather quick. And then later on in April, they're thinking a 5700 non-X, a 5100, and a 4700. So this is really just every defective die that I think that they have sitting around. They're like, yeah, just throw it out there, cut it down. What I find really weird is why would they bother bringing out old Renoir X CPUs? These are old Renoir chips here. What they're doing is the Renoir X's just mean that the iGPU is disabled. That would be the 4500 and 4100. 4600G is Zen 2 CPU cores with Vega. I don't really think it's something that people have been asking for, but hey, it looks like that's what they're going to be doing. So there's no real pricing here, but they have listed the Ryzen 5 5500, which on the last leak was coming in at like 120 or less. They now have it listed at 159. To me, this is horribly uncompetitive. Even though it does have the 6 cores and 12 threads, they have the SMT enabled. I would have much rather seen a 6-core, 6-thread part at $120-ish instead. Personally, to me, this just doesn't make it competitive enough against something like a 12400F at maybe 180, which will be faster than this for just a couple of dollars more. Now, looking at the Renoir X's, these may become OEM only, as they have listed here. The other ones, the other Renoir chips were OEM only, so perhaps maybe that's what they're going to be used for in cheap pre-built systems. That would make a lot more sense, because if there is going to be a Ryzen 3 5100 with 4 cores and 8 threads, I think that that's going to basically destroy any reason to buy any of these over here. So this chip right here, if they come out with it, and let's say that's 120 bucks or less, that would be rather competitive. But I still think that I'd rather have seen AMD go with a 6-core, 6-thread, as that would have been much faster than the i3 2100 multi-threading, whereas this will likely lose in multi-threading and single core. So it won't look as good next to the Intel part. But AMD still has a lot of very budget-friendly AM4 boards out there. So I think that's what they're banking on, is that people would go with the cheaper motherboard and maybe not get as fast of a CPU. So they're basically taking advantage of the situation. Intel just needs to come out with some cheaper boards, lower the prices of their chips, and try to push out some decent boards at about the $80 price point, and then that kills this lineup from AMD. All right, now last but not least, we have retailer information on the 5800X 3D and 5700X. So what they found is that 2 retailers have the 5800X 3D, and they're showing a price of 428 euros. So that's just a little bit over the 449 USD thing, but obviously euro dollar prices fluctuate, so that's about right. So at least the what we thought was going to be the price at 449 appears to be the case. Now, the 5700X, they said is easier to find because they found it at 3 retailers ranging from 316 euro up to 371 euro. I think that that's just a placeholder price at this point in time. This will likely be the 299 price point. That has come out here recently. In my last video, they were suspecting that it'd be around 250, which would have been a killer price. That would have actually been where this chip would make a lot of sense. But if they're going to come out with a 5700 non-X, perhaps that'll be at the $250 price point. I just don't see any point to having a 5700 and a 5700X. They should just choose one number, just like they did with Zen 2, stick with it. The 259, I think, is perfect for this type of chip and would really give Intel a run for their money at that particular price point. But at $299, I don't know. To me, it just doesn't seem good enough. And unfortunately, that's the ultimate takeaway. I was really hyped up on the last video that I did because the pricing that we were seeing and the performance and everything was looking really competitive from AMD. Kind of going back to their roots saying, hey, look, we're pretty much done with Zen 3. We're pretty much done with the 7nm node. Let's just clear out our inventory, cut them down, sell them super cheap, get them gone, beat the crap out of Intel. That would have been perfect. You know, making new SKUs that were able to do that would have been great, and given a lot of people on the AM4 platform a reason to upgrade. So if you're running something like a 3700X, but if you could sell that off for $200 and for $50 more, get yourself a Zen 3 chip, I know a lot of people would have done that. Now, if the 5700X is $300, that doesn't really make a whole lot of sense. You're better off just waiting for Zen 4 to come out and then making up your mind at that point. And I think that that's really the issue here with AMD here lately. They just don't understand that they need to flood the market when technology gets old with cheap stuff, not with expensive or similarly priced things, not even things that make sense price to performance relative to where they are and where the market is today. They need to be disruptive at this point in time for anybody to actually care. Because if these come out and they're not disruptive, they just kind of slot in and it's like, I guess it kind of makes sense there. It's not going to be doing anything. We've seen retailers like Micro Center here in the US selling 5800Xs for $300 USD. So that's where that chip should be, honestly. And then at $259, I think a 5700X makes a whole lot of sense, makes them hyper competitive. And then coming out with something like a 5600 non-X and bringing that in around $159, $169 would make that hyper competitive. And then bringing down the 5600 to $199 or maybe $210, somewhere around $200. Then a 6-core, 6-thread could dominate at the low end. And just bring that in at the same price as the i3. You get better multitasking performance, multi-thread performance versus single core. And that'd be your option. And I think that that was going to be a win for AMD. So I'm hoping that they watch this. These haven't been announced yet. This isn't official besides the X3D. That one's pretty much set in stone. But on these cheaper SKUs, that makes a whole lot more sense for them. Cutting down a Zen 3 die all the way down to 4-core 8-thread, there's no die that is that defective, to be perfectly honest with you guys. So that just means that they're throwing away perfectly good cores. Going down to 6-core 6-thread to me makes a little bit more sense. It is faster than a 4-core 8-thread, and you're basically not throwing away as much performance doing it that way. Now, they may have more defective dies than I'm anticipating, but they have the 5300U and 5300G on the OEM side, taking up the 4-core 8-thread lineup, so they should be able to sell all the defective units off. So selling 6-core 6-thread parts to us makes a lot of sense. Regardless, I think that that's a better strategy than what they're now proposing. We'll have to wait and see. Hopefully they catch wind of this video and readjust their plans, because one is an absolute slam dunk. The other one is, well, who cares? You know, people just aren't going to pay any attention to it. And honestly, with AMD's marketing track record, I'm thinking the latter makes more sense. So here's to hoping that they don't do that and we get better products at better prices. And speaking of better prices, time for the good old game of the day. So today's good old game of the day is Batman Arkham City, or the entire Arkham series, to be perfectly honest with you. This is one of my favorite game series of all time, but Arkham City is on sale right now over here on GOG for only $4.19. This is one of the best games ever made for less than $5, and you get it DRM free, so you actually own it forever. So this is definitely one of those games, if you haven't played them, you absolutely must. And if you haven't played them recently, they're definitely worth going through. I play probably one of these games every year. So basically every 4 years or so, I cycle through the entire series. So you can pick them all up. They're all available over here on GOG. But if you like action, adventure, dark, gritty, Batman-ness, great atmosphere, great music, great voice acting, just a great game overall, definitely check this one out. Links are in the description below. Well, alrighty guys, that'll pretty much do it for me here today. But if you want to chat about all of this tech stuff, all this cool stuff that we've got coming out, join Paul and I at the Techonomics Podcast. Links are down below. Just go over there, hit the sub button, hit the notification bell. We will be going live tomorrow, and we go live in the middle of the week every week, so twice a week, and you can talk to us about these things live. So I do recommend doing that. It's the best way you can interact with me, and we can interact with you guys in the community. So I love doing it, and I know Paul loves doing it, and you guys seem to have a great time. So come and join the fun. We'll go ahead and, like I said, we will be live tomorrow as well as usually Wednesday or Thursday in the middle of the week every single week. So, alrighty guys, that's all I got for you here today. If you like the video, please smash that like button. Please subscribe. Please share with friends. That really does help me out. I hope you guys have a great weekend, and I'll catch you guys in the next video.